And Asher had a big hole in the wall between the two lower chambers. That wasn't all. Notice how I mentioned that one artery comes out of this chamber and one artery comes out of that chamber? Actually, Asher, when you were born, it was more like this. I'm going to draw a little picture here, like a box diagram. Yours was more, you know what, these are probably going to be very confusing. There's just too much on here, but I'm going to draw a little box diagram about the other issue. You had a hole in that wall, and the hole was in a very special place, and let me explain. Notice how one artery comes out of this chamber and one artery comes out of that chamber. Asher had a hole in this wall, and this artery was pushed way over, so both arteries were coming out of here instead of one out of the one and one out of the other. So it looked like this, a big hole, and instead of one artery, one of these two pipes coming out of this pumping chamber and one coming out of that, both came out of this one. Okay, and that's what's called double outlet right ventricle. So he had the hole and the two arteries shifted over. That was okay. But the other thing that was very complicated was, remember how I said there are two pipes coming into the heart? This pipe right here did not come into this chamber like it should. Instead of one set of pipes coming right in here, look what yours did. One came in here, one went up this way and all the way around and came in that way. One went down here and down to this vein here. There wasn't one big pipe bringing the blood in here. It divided up into 3 or 4 pipes and went to 3 or 4 different places. And that's what made your operation particularly challenging and particularly special. And so if I were to draw this here, it was like one little pipe came in here, but then some pipes came over to this area, and one pipe came way down and came in over here. I mean, there were all these extra little pipes, and I've drawn that terribly. I can't believe it. I'm usually a pretty good drawer, but anyway, here, let's see there. So anyway, so there were many different pipes. Instead of one big one coming into the left upper chamber, it was divided up into many little ones. So this was your heart when you were born. You had a big hole in the wall between your two lower chambers, and this artery and that artery both came out of the right side of your heart. So, and these veins split all up and went in different places. What Dr. Quaggaber did was he put a patch in here in such a way so that a wall was put in here, so the blood from this chamber went over here and the blood from that chamber went around and out there. And that wall was very complicated. It had to be put in a very complicated way. In other words, he split things up so that now in your heart, one artery comes out of the right-sided pumping chamber and one artery comes out of the left-sided pumping chamber. And then the big thing, he took these veins and he kind of brought them together and attached them right into this chamber just like they were supposed to be. And that worked very well. Some of these veins got kinked a little bit, so some veins are bigger than others, but the majority, nearly all of these veins coming back from the lung, instead of coming in 5 different places, are all coming back to one place. There may be one little vein that's going back where it isn't supposed to, but the catheterization showed that wasn't enough to worry about.
Okay.
So the vast majority of these lung veins are coming in the way they should. So now your heart looks like this. Your heart has 4 chambers, just like it was supposed to, and it kind of looks like, oh dear, yeah, it kind of is working like this again. But now, you know, you have a patch. There was a patch put in to close that hole. And now there's I'm going to put a patch here. This is where they sewed the veins back into your heart here. So the lung veins come into your heart normally. The hole separates the 2 arteries. So one artery is coming out of the one pumping chamber and one artery is coming out of the other. Mommy, can you carry it on? Where's the problem right now?
He has a subaortic stenosis. So
He has. It isn't. I'm drawing this like a schematic diagram. It doesn't really look exactly like this. But what he has basically is some muscle has built up under where the blood goes out to the body. so that all the surgery that was done is working fine, but your heart just built up some muscle here and it's blocking the blood getting out of your heart. And in this picture, if this is the artery coming out of the one side of Asher's heart, this is the artery coming out of the other. See how Dr. Cavessos wrote in these little blockages here?
Yeah.
The blood has to go through this narrowed area to get out to the body.
Okay.
Now, this probably has something a little bit to do with that. Remember I told you how Dr. Quaggaber had to really do a very expert way of putting this patch in so that the patch would divide the two pumping chambers in two. The patch could be partly responsible for the blockage here,
okay.
but I have to tell you that happens with this operation. The result that Asher got from this operation, this one operation when he was 3 months old, is unbelievable. I mean, this was a really good result, and you've done well.
Yeah.
Now, but the catheterization we did on Friday, the 11th, what it shows is, and Asher, no one expect. What grade are you testing in, 4th or 5th? Or fifth. Do you see this number right here? It says 180, and this number here says 108.
Yeah.
These two numbers should be the same. 108 is a normal, that's the pressure in his arm, like if we take a blood pressure, and that's exactly what Asher should be. His pressure in here should be 108.
So it's high.
But it's 180. The higher this number, the higher the pressure is. So what that's telling me is this pumping chamber has to pump really hard to push the blood through this blockage here. Now, you know what it's like if you lift weights a lot. What happens to your muscles in your arms if you lift too many weights? What do?
They hurt.
They hurt and they get sore and then they get weak. And if I don't, my responsibility is to say, gee, this is getting to a point now where this is putting a strain on your heart muscle here. And if I let this go 2 or 3 or 4 more years, it could cause a strain on your heart muscle that won't get better. In other words, if we wait too long and then do the surgery, your heart muscle may not get its strength back afterwards. So we want to do it while you're well. You may be wondering, well, gee, I feel good and I feel okay. But if we wait until you're having trouble walking upstairs or going to school or doing fun things, then we've waited too long. The heart muscle has gotten too much strain.
Gotcha.
So this is the thing. What is Dr. Alfieri going to do? If you look at this, well, oh gosh, he'll just cut this here and he'll cut that off and that. But it's more complicated than that. He's not going to know exactly how to relieve this until he gets in there and looks at it with his eyes.
Okay.
And it may involve just cutting this muscle, but it could involve more. It could involve having to cut open this whole area and even put an artificial valve in here to open up enough area to let the blood get out of his heart. So we have to be prepared. The surgery could be simple as just cutting out the muscle and the blockage, or as serious as having to really open this whole area up and put an artificial valve in here and maybe move this. In other words, move this whole wall over so that he can get enough room for the blood to get out of his heart.
So you're saying it could be a simple procedure, or it could be sort of like half of what he had when he was a baby?
What he had when he was a baby was multiple places in the heart. This will all be localized in one place. The old surgery, they had to work behind his heart, inside his heart. So that's the one thing. The things going for him, he's what, 10 times bigger than he was when he was a little baby, and so he's much bigger and he's much stronger. The things against are that there's going to be scar here from his previous surgery, so it's going to take an hour or two. When he's asleep, he'll be out like a light. Asher will take time for Dr. Alfieri to find all the different areas, and so he can do the cutting right and not cause any damage.
Okay.
But I'd say this is a big, if he has to extend this wall and cut the whole wall out and make a bigger valve and put it in here, there's a name for that. It's called the Kono operation. If he just does the cutting out, it's called a resection.
Okay.
Let me hear. So,
now I have stuff to Google.
Options. Oh, don't Google too much. Now, option 1, cut out muscle blockage, and that is called a resection. That just means cut out.
Okay.
The next would be